There you go. Well, hello, Mitch. Thanks for coming on the show. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Although we were invited over to a nice event at your wonderful house just this last weekend, and that reminds me of how we met because that was an entrepreneurs organization event, and we met in the Dallas chapter. I was president of the Dallas chapter, and then their Fort Worth chapter started, which you helped start, and then went on to become president of that. So very appropriate to have you on the show, called Entrepreneurs Business and Finance.
Yeah, great to be here. And yeah, I was thinking about that, how we met, and I was really fortunate to have met you now 17, 18 years ago, and I be lucky enough to be in your forum for about 10 years.
Well, I feel the same way. And for those of you who don't know, Forum is a breakout group. We meet once a month, all total dinner and everything, probably 6 hours, and you talk about the most important things in your life in a confidential setting, business, personal. I mean, there's certainly a business orientation, but it overlaps into personal. And then we took a retreat once a year where we went all over the world, different and the country, but Costa Rica, different places in the USA. So it's in my mind that it makes for a lifelong bond, to say the least. Um, but having said all that, we want to hear how you decided to start your first business, because I know you have started at least a dozen. I didn't know all this. You were happy enough to, because I'm not updated on some of the most current ones, but bought, sold, or closed on 12 different companies, and helped people manage their debt. Wrote a book, had lead generation company, and now look at your fantastic background. You've more recently been on Shark Tank and started the company Hire Santa, which is a national organization. So you have some national notoriety for many reasons. Perhaps could you tell us how you first got started on your very first company? Because that's always difficult.
Yeah, and it's it's one of the things that, looking back, you craft a story that sort of fits the narrative of where you ended up. But I do think that even from a young age, I always, in today's world, are what they call hustling. I always wanted to do something, whether it be buying and sell baseball cards and comic books, or when I was high school and college, and then buying rent houses while I was in grad school. It wasn't necessarily about the money, because I don't think I actually made any money doing any of those things, but I had a lot of fun doing them and learned a lot of things that you just don't get unless you're actually sort of doing things. And fast forward, then after I got out of grad school, I had my best friend, and we were best men in each other's weddings. He had a business, or was wanting to start a business. And so I left a very good job at Citigroup doing statistical analysis to start a business with him. And so we started one business that led to another, and then another, and another, and another, just sort of following our nose, not really know what the plan was. And then 25 years later, I've had, yeah, more than a dozen businesses that have either started or bought, sold, and there's probably that equal number that have failed, because, for every good idea, I've probably had 10 bad ideas.
That's something that I find in common with a lot of people that are successful and lead interesting lives, is they try different things, and they're okay with failing, because they understand that it's really not necessarily a failure. They identify it more as a learning experience to go into the next thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, many times when I talk with people who've been um, in a job and are wanting to start another business, they just see this risk. And what I think that most entrepreneurs are not risk takers. In many ways, they're able to see an opportunity to minimize risk in some way, and they'll take advantage of either some opportunity or an arbitrage or something. It's not about I'm just this reckless person out there, betting the farm, every single day. It's about, how can I have sort of asymmetric opportunities where the downside isn't that bad, but the upside is much higher than it would be to working, just working a 9 to 5 job. And in addition to that, I was fortunate to not have kids, not have an unbearable mortgage, not have a lot of debt when I started or went to work, and when we started our first business. And, just those obligations that when you're 45 or 50 years old and you've got kids and mortgages and debt and what all these things, I think it's harder for people to start a business sort of later in life because you just feel this pressure of obligations that you have.
Absolutely. Well said. Why don't you talk a little bit about Lead Rival? That's one
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with.
Yeah.
But I know that folks might be interested in hearing about what
Yeah,
that
Lead
company.
Rival, that was the first not the first company started, but the first, I'm called sort of real company that had got to any size. Um, and what we did there, we did lead generation in the consumer legal services space. So our clients were law firms around the country that specialized in one of about 14 practice areas. These anywhere from personal injury to bankruptcy, social security disability, DUI, divorce, like basically anything that a consumer needs legal representation. We did online advertising for them. It didn't actually start out that way. It started out doing traditional TV, yellow pages, direct mail, because we started in 2001. And very quickly we started doing online advertising. And by, I think, 2004, that was 97% of what we did. And then from there, it grew, and, to roughly, $20 million or so in sales annually. And then we exited it in 2019.
You also have you're chairman of Debt Education and Certification Foundation of 5013. And that's something that I know can help a lot of people, because that's an issue in this country where people get in debt and have trouble getting out of it.
Yeah, so the laws changed in 2005. It seems like yesterday, but literally almost 20 years ago, changed dramatically. And so it required that if you were even considering, if you filed personal bankruptcy or were going through that process, that there was some real educational components to it. And so we started a nonprofit that did financial education. And over the course of the next 15 years, we've educated over 2 million people, primarily online, but then also on the phone. We have counselors 24/7, about 363 days a year. And I was chairman and CEO of that until just a couple of years ago. And but it was a great, just a tremendous experience, as well as a great group of people, and operating like it's still a business. It's just a nonprofit, an entirely different type of controls, as well as mission that we had dealing with that. And I learned a tremendous amount through that process, as well as and met just a huge number of people around the country who had similar goals and missions.
Then you also do some coaching, consulting. Is that more of an informal basis where people that refer things over and you just try to go help?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's you turn around all of a sudden and you're not 30 anymore, and you've had a huge amount of experience, from partner issues. I've had a dozen or so companies, and at one point in 2018, my goal for that year was to clean up like these handshake agreements that you have partners, and then you start another business and you don't really have formal agreements, and you got another partner, and you got all these sort of handshake deals that just sort of a mess. And I cleaned all that up in 2018, formalized things, bought and sold a bunch of businesses, really concentrated my own efforts into Lead Rival at the time, and a couple of other ones, sold real estate. Like, it just cleaned up this mess. But with that comes a fair amount of experience. And, when you're talking with someone who is similar to you, but is 10 or 20 years behind you and what you've done, and that their age may not be that, they may be much older or younger, but in terms of like their experience or where they are in their business life, your experience, and your experience is relevant to them. So I've gone and I've spoken to a number of business organizations and EO chapters around the country, And then I do a little bit of actual coaching. I'm happy to talk with anyone, but there a few people have wanted to get into a more formal relationship where they're paying me to coach and advise them on a variety of things. But I do that just on a very limited basis, and it's really I don't want to say it's giving back because I'm getting paid for it, but it's really just to give back in some way and contribute and help others.
Well, let's talk about pretty interesting experience you had and a business you created before that experience and a business you continue to grow called Hire Santa. We can see your t-shirt and your coffee cup and your background.
Yep.
How did you get the idea to start that? And how did you get onto Shark Tank? And then what was Shark Tank like?
Yeah, so Hire Santa, it's the most fun business I've ever had. It's not the biggest, but it's a great small business. And yeah, I'm here in our Hire Santa studio because we do a fair amount of filming, and anytime I want to look professional, this is where I go. So Hire Santa started out of DCAF, the Dead Education Certification Foundation. I think it was 2007 or 8, and we had a Christmas party, and my executive assistant asked me to dress up like Santa. Obviously, I don't look like Santa, but had a ton of fun. And then I uh, did appear as Santa for my children, and really fell in love with the love and joy of Christmas, and sort of the reflected love that you're trying to pour out into them, and they're really showing you this love of Christmas. We did it again the next year at our Dead Education and Certification Foundation. And somebody then asked me to appear at their house for their kid. And then somebody else asked me, and they wanted to pay me. And as an entrepreneur, somebody's wanting to pay you to do something. And I'm an all-in guy. So I quickly, though it's hard to imagine, became a pretty good-looking Santa, if there's such a thing. And being an internet marketer, started marketing myself. And soon I had more business than I could do with myself. So I started farming it out to other Santas, bought the domain hiresanta.com and some other domains, and just started growing that business, that seasonal business, slowly until 2018. And my Fort Worth forum, actually uh, encouraged me that this was a great business, and I was going to experience some real growth that year because we got a big national contract to go on to Shark Tank. And it took me 9 months of preparation and going through all the hoops, and appeared on Shark Tank in 2018. Got to deal with Barbara Corcoran. It was just an incredible experience. And then since then, we've had 2 updates. We've had an update in 2019, and then we had another Shark Tank update in 2023, this last December. That it's like the gift that keeps on giving, because reruns keep running. It also creates this third-party validation or credibility by being on Shark Tank and getting a deal. And so, whenever somebody's looking to revamp their holiday experience, inevitably some marketing person in the room has seen our episode and says, "Hey, wasn't there somebody on Shark Tank?" They go on and Google it, and as an internet marketer, we make sure that we show up, and so that helps our business. So yeah, it's been a great experience being on Shark Tank, but sort of all the other things outside of it, the credibility, the advertising itself. There's no way a small business could afford 8 minutes on primetime ABC, and then the reruns. Just you couldn't afford that.
You're probably pretty comfortable now, the third time on, but with the first time, was it nerve-wracking? Of course, you didn't know you were going to win, I guess you call, get a sponsor that comes in as a partner. That's what they all try to do. And
It's interesting because um, the first audition was late January, and then we filmed on September 14th, like in September. And during that process, I really over-prepared. I watched every episode, wrote down and categorized questions, hired a couple of interns to help me. I went to presented to several forums in Fort Worth and did these mock Shark Tank rehearsals. And then when I flew out to LA, I did a mock Shark Tank with some members of EOLA. And so by the time that I'm stepping onto the carpet, I was really had this mindset of wanting to enjoy the experience, and not get it over with, but I was really prepared. Like, I had gone through all the questions. I had I thought 5 very difficult questions, memorized answers for those. And then by the time I got there, I was ready to do it and enjoy it. Plus, I'd already had 20 years of being an entrepreneur. So, talking to, whether it be investors or people, public speaking, it wasn't sort of my first rodeo. So I wasn't overwhelmed by the situation in ways that maybe other people were. Plus, I'd also read a bunch about negotiating and studied that. So I had a variety of tactics that I wanted to use or could use if things didn't go. But interesting, it is filmed reality. There's no stopping, no double takes. We filmed for 47 minutes, and they cut that down then to 8 minutes.
Wow, that's cool. And right now, do you want to tell people maybe 2 things? Maybe if they wanted to hire a Santa, how that would work for them, and then 2, kind of how you run the business, and maybe how you tell your clients, you run the business, and
Yep.
a little bit about the operations and the benefits and some of the new things that you do.
Sure. But you can just go to hiresanta.com, and you will see just the Hire Santa. So hiresanta.com, it's super easy. And we reach out to you and book Santa. But the earlier you can, the better. Clients reach out to us late November, and they want a Santa early December, and they think that they've got plenty of time. When we book lots of events, literally a year in advance, like one event, the day it ends, the next day they rebook for a Santa. So the earlier the better for that. But in terms of operations, people think that it's a seasonal business, and we do deliver our product mainly in November and December. But all year round, it really is about sales, operations. This year, we've entirely revamped our scheduling, payment, invoicing, and calendaring system. We built that from scratch, had developers in India help us to code it. It's taken us about 14 months to get to this point, and hoping that will increase our efficiency and be able to book more events with the same or fewer, with the same number of people that we have currently. And we just have a great group of people here at Hire Santa, both full-time employees as well as contractors from around the world that we outsource to for very specialized tasks.
And are you looking to do other businesses as well right now? Probably always are, right?
Always, I'm always looking. Since my non-compete's been up, I've started a lead gen digital agency to do search engine optimization, paid search, paid media, as well as some lead gen. So I'm sort of back into that same space. But in Hire Santa, we do a variety of things that our clients want us to do. Say Easter Bunny. Easter is probably 3 or 5% of what we do annually. It's a small percentage. We do some other events throughout the year. Interesting enough, we just launched this last year, Hire Mariachis. Our clients have been wanting us to provide mariachi bands. And one of the things that Hire Santa does is we operate on a similar level to our clients, whether that be a consumer who just wants Santa to come to their home, or a Fortune 500 company, the Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers, big malls that want somebody to communicate and to deal with them on the same level. They want they've got RFPs, they've got terms in terms of how they pay, net 30 or net 60, whereas entertainers aren't able to sort of jump through those hoops or even finance those types of operations. And so that's one of our advantages, is that we can communicate and operate on levels that maybe just a solo entertainer or a small band can't.
You why don't we wrap up with maybe two things? If you have a story about an obstacle that you overcome, because you talked about the failures. Um, I've had failures. Everybody, I think, has had failures. I'm reading Elon Musk's book. He had a lot of failures and some very near misses to failures. And he's very unusual. I'm reading about his risk tolerance, but I also speak to maybe overcoming an obstacle. But I like what you said about seeing an opportunity and trying to mitigate risk with the business, because there's risk going to work for a company. The company may go out of work, may not like your boss, may transfer you somewhere you don't want to go. So if you want to look at it from a risk standpoint, there's really risks in any choice that you make. Uh, and so maybe overcoming an obstacle and some advice. You already gave kind of advice on risk, but some other advice that you find yourself giving to some younger or less experienced entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things come to mind. Number one, you're totally right about failures. I remember 4 or 5 years into our business, or one of our main business, we were 37 days away from shutting it down. Like, we were going to run out of cash and not be able to do it. So you're entirely right. Like, when you get in these tough situations, you've got to figure it out, or you got to shut it down. And just going into it knowing that it's going to be hard. And the saying is about it's going to be harder and take longer than you expect. That's always been my experience, that it's just harder and it's going to take longer than what you think. It's in terms of advice, though, there's a couple of things right now. When I talk to people, and I was just looking at now I've done some investing, and I was looking at this one particular business, just a really great profitable business. And the thing that hit me was the thing that when I talk to entrepreneurs or have businesses, it's they need to raise their prices. We've had this inflationary period over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years where everything has gone up 5 or 7% a year, compounded for several years. And many entrepreneurs are scared to raise their prices because they think their customers will leave. And I've experienced this in Lead Rival. We held the prices, and our sales team said, "Oh, we can't raise prices because our customers will leave." And it's just, that's out of fear. And so I had this thought about pricing with confidence. You've got to price with confidence, and if you haven't raised your prices, 15 or 20% in the last 3 or 4 years, then you should go do that today, because it's probably not found money, but it will make your life, your margins, your valuation, it just makes everything better.
Well, that is good. And I like your advice about harder and longer. There's a joke, however long you think it'll take, double it and add 50%, which is, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
basically doubling it 3 times. So that's a good thing to wrap up on. And people are going to be fortunate if they take the time to listen to you. So thanks for coming on. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, Henry.
You bet. Bye.